inclusion is the centerpiece. And there's so many definitions of inclusion. But my view is being able to be cultural humble, which essentially means you're never going to know a person 100%, but the message you send to them is, I'm going to stay at it.
That's right.
I'm going to remain curious, and not only for my sake, but for our sake. And not only for our sake, but for all people, in terms of trying to, how can we engage you in a way that we can use your insights and your ideas and your perspectives to be better and make other people better.
So what's up, Sussex? Here we are once again, and today I got a special guest, Dr. Julius Mullen. Actually, drjuliusmullen.com. What's going on, Doc?
What's going on, man? Pleasure to be here.
Man, thank you for being here, man. This has been like 4 years in the making.
Yeah.
And I have to say this. I have to give you a shout out, man. I've been on a journey, man. I've been in Sussex County since the mid '90s, and when I've always been consistently searching, right, to better myself, and when I looked around, you were one of the few individuals, man. Like and I know I've never told you this, man. You were one of the few individuals that I said to myself, "That's that image."
Wow.
That I need to pursue.
Wow.
And every time that you and I have run into each other, like I've consistently, and I just couldn't find words to tell you. When you look at somebody, because when you look around, I don't see that many images, man, of what I was searching for, but you was the closest thing to that. And here we are, man. So I have to tell you, right? I think over the past few years, we've run into each other at Starbucks.
Yeah, that's right.
And just, you always had that smile. You was always that strong brother, man. You was always that image that I consistently am chasing.
Wow.
You feel me?
I appreciate that, man.
For real,
appreciate
man.
The love,
I need to
man.
tell you that. And I know that
Yeah.
we really don't know each other, but from far, brother, I always said to myself, that's it right there,
Wow.
man.
Wow.
With everything you're doing in the community, especially, what's most important, your family.
Yeah.
Shout out to Miss Natasha. I'm a fan.
Thank
your
you.
4 children. I know we're gonna talk about them. Your business, Impact Delaware. How you are consistently. I just have to use the word preaching. What chasing excellence look like. Does that make sense?
It's a blessing to be a blessing, man. I appreciate the love. So
I have to say that. So
appreciate it.
let's jump right into this, man. Like, who are you?
Yeah, so I've been blessed with all these roles and titles and professional spaces, whether it's my role with Children and Families First, which I'm extremely grateful for, grassroots work, Impact Delaware, whether it's on this board or that board. But really, I'm just a fun-loving guy that loves to bring a lot of energy in every single space I enter. I love to make another person's day. I love to, which is the premier principles or mission of our Impact Delaware work, regardless of the roles and the titles. It's all about 3 things. It's about encouraging people, it's about educating people, and it's about empowering people. And the roles and the positions are tools to do that. That's pretty simple guy, but I've been blessed to fulfill those 3 aspects that I've been charged, and I emphasize that I've been charged to do.
So you see, I didn't know that, and that's how I started out. You've consistently your walk impacting people. Right. It's obvious. Right. You don't even have to say it. It's so obvious. So can you talk to me about? I know you with. What's your position?
At Children and Families First?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I spent over 15 years at Children and Families First, predominantly as their chief clinical officer, which simply stated is a position where I led and provided oversight of all of our clinical programs, counseling, behavioral health, community advocacy, child welfare, some education, but really bringing that clinical lens. And it's been this term in the state of Delaware because I'm always also the board president of Trauma Matters Delaware. So I brought that energy in terms of, there's a term called trauma-informed care,
Yes.
which essentially is being compassionate to
Yeah.
people and being able to encourage people and empower people and educate people. But my role of Chief Inclusion Officer is really to do several things. I certainly hope to impact the agency culture, not just internal agency, but external as well. I am also blessed to be responsible for leading a variety of professional development spaces and training and learning piece. And there's so many definitions of inclusion, but my view is being able to be cultural humble, which essentially means you're never going to know a person 100%, but the message you send to them is, I'm going to stay at it.
That's right.
I'm going to remain curious, and not only for my sake, but for our sake, and not only for our sake, but for all people, in terms of trying to, how can we engage you in a way that we can use your insights and your ideas and your perspectives to be better and make other people better. Some other areas of my position of Chief Inclusion Officer is everybody's talking about self-care now,
Yes,
and
yes.
I think that is an awesome thing. I think people should chase, and I use that word purposely, chase self-care for the rest of their life.
And you know that's in many different forms because I see you on social media, right? Like with the
Yeah.
family cooking. That's all
Yeah,
self-care.
absolutely.
So where did I know that you really started doing that during, especially when we were in the midst of the pandemic,
Yeah,
man. So.
yeah.
And I see you still doing it.
Yeah,
I just saw one. You know,
absolutely.
I think you guys were cooking something with your daughters, and
Yeah. I experienced so much joy in my family, which is consistent with many families, particularly in the African American community. Cooking, the kitchen is more than a place to prepare and eat. It is a safe place. The kitchen is a place where you enjoy conversation, where you're able to connect with family and friends. Oh yeah, the food is very important too. You
That's
know,
right, that's right.
so
and the history of
yeah,
it too.
and the history of cooking and the type of food that that we tend to enjoy. But so it's more than the food. Not like catchy names. So I just put a tag name to
Yeah.
it. What's cooking, Doc? You
That's
know.
right, yeah.
But my father and I was raised by my grandfather. They both were men who knew their way around the kitchen.
That's awesome.
So
Question for you: you could have been anywhere. You could have left Sussex and been successful anywhere in this world. Why you chose to stay in Sussex?
you know, we meaning us kids, my generation, the Xers. I'm not sure we would call Xers back then, but we were kind of taught because our family came from the South, and they came from the South for work, and the work was agriculture and poultry, and that's what we grew up watching. And some of those observations and experiences were certainly admirable, and some of them was like, boy, that's hard work. You know, that's a lot of hard work, and that was kind of the informal message. You go to school, you graduate, and you work in agriculture. But I knew there was more. There was more promise, and because what they meaning our forefathers, my grandfather in particular, because I was raised by him predominantly, taught me the value of hard work, taught me the value of treating people right, taught me the value of a sense of community, and receiving and pursuing and obtaining knowledge through education. So I remember working as a teen in the local watermelon patch, and I said to myself, I really can't see myself doing this. I mean, that's a strenuous work, you know. So what other options are there? So so many mentors, so many people who've had my back and go to school, go to school, go to school. There are other options, but for me, that was certainly the pathway. So yeah,
What was your grandfather's name?
Dennis Mullen Sr.
Dennis Mullen
Yeah,
Sr. And
yeah,
what did he do for a living?
yeah. What an incredible man. He is certainly. I have many heroes, but he certainly is at the top of the mountain, so to speak. He had to quit school in the sixth grade. He was the oldest of several siblings. He took care of his siblings starting in the sixth grade. He was heavy into farming and agriculture and that type of expertise. He came from Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and not just him, but many families who live in Sussex in particular come from North Carolina, South Carolina. So yeah, I mean, he was a groundsman. He was into, we had a small farm. We had pigs and one goat and a couple of chickens that laid eggs. So hard worker. We had an immaculate field where it was kind of a hidden resource that people would come over and get some collards and potatoes and tomatoes and all the vegetables from our house. So, but he was many things. But he was also what he would say, number one, he was the deacon of the church, and he was quite committed to being a deacon and being connected, to the Bible and Scripture. So I grew up in a household where there was a deacon of a Pentecostal church. So I could go on talking about my grandfather for a long time, but
And the good thing is that what I'm hearing, his work still continues through you because people, the community still are coming to him through you, seeking them fruits.
yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I see that, right? Like people are still coming to him through you.
That's right.
You've been a good vessel of that word, of that effort, them teachings, and they continue. You know, and I really like to connect it, and I like to learn our forefathers' names, right? Because he was so important to you and so powerful, man.
That's right.
I want to know, your phenomenal wife, Natasha, and yourself. You guys own Impact Delaware. Talk to me about Impact Delaware.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2004, we had our own personal challenges with, particularly my son. And he wouldn't mind me saying that. In school, it was in the third and fourth grade, and he had some challenges in terms of paying attention, staying on task, staying out of trouble, and staying focused. So we had him tested, and they the school system recommended a few strategies based on a diagnosis, and come to find out, one thing about my wife, and she's probably even better at it today, she questions everything. Which is a great skill for me, a great skill for my kids to replicate. So that was, and she is certainly a mama bear. So she questioned the diagnosis and the perspective. No disrespect to the school, but that's what parents are supposed to do, you know? So long story short, the diagnosis was changed and the interventions was changed, and it worked. I mean, it wasn't like magic, but certainly it worked. So, and a conversation during Pillow Talk, we said, I wonder how many other parents and families who may not be as comfortable in questioning status quo. So one thing led to another, where we started this program called Speak. and it was supporting the parents for the education of African American kids, right in Western Sussex, right in Seaford there. And we used that old-fashioned type of approach. Let's meet at my house. And these are families who you would not normally see in your traditional PTOs and PTAs. So we embraced them and did a backyard type of thing. Hey, you bring the potato salad, you bring the macaroni and cheese, you bring this, I got you, and we'll talk. Bring the kids. Not just the adults. So the kids would go play, and in fact, we named that beginning days grown folks talk and kids go play. But that was a time. That was really a parent education thing, you know what I mean? So it started there. Then that next year, I developed a program through the local middle school basketball team called the A Squad, Achievement in Academics and Attitude and Athletics. But we had a small sample. A good friend of mine, Marvin Phillips, who is a correctional officer now and was a correctional officer then. So imagine that, a therapist and a correctional officer coaching a basketball team. So what we learned, this is new, you know, all the kids, the best kids, the most talented kids, were not eligible to play because of grades. So we said next year we're going to be ready for them. So that's when we started the A Squad. So we opened the gym on a Saturday, every Saturday, well before the season. I mean, we had electric pans, sausages, pancakes, and everything, fed them. Just bring your book bag, you can go do some work in here. So everybody was eligible. Nobody had any problem with their grades. By the way, a little shout out, we went undefeated that year, but that's a sideshow. But what the superintendent said, whoa, can you do what you did with this basketball team for a larger population, particularly our boys, and more specifically our boys of color? And that's when Man Up was born.
Wow, I remember.
That's when Man Up. So over the years, back in 2004, and not only Man Up, my wife started a program very similar to Man Up called Unique, where she used the concept of dance to teach self-esteem and social skills and resilience and life skills. And we were doing the same thing through our Man Up program. So that's where it was born, and then it evolved into a nonprofit. We kept it small purposely. I remember a conversation with my wife, let's make it big. And everybody would say, oh, my God, I have friends now. Can you come to Chicago and do Man Up program? But the recipe is keep it small and focused, keep it grassroots, and keep the champions in your community to run it. And that's when we started Impact Delaware, and it's official nonprofit. We have a board and all the stuff. But mainly we kept it small and focused.
And question for you, why was basketball the vehicle you utilized?
Yeah. I don't think sports in general get enough credit. And particularly with this particular community that we were working with, basketball was an incredible, powerful engagement tool to get them in the door. I actually learned that through a pastor when we grew up. I don't know if you know a pastor, Melissa Dukes, or overseer Melissa Dukes, who she would have, 50 or 60 guys in the gym. And she had her own kids, too, and everybody be playing and having a good time. This is a place to be, you know what I mean? Then she would go in the middle of the court, hold it, everybody on the stands. And she would share a couple of scriptures, but using that type of energy, using that approach a little differently, but using basketball to get them in the door. And we fed them and all that. But basketball was, and their friends and food was primary vehicles. And then we showed them love, and the rest is history. Over 200 right now who are alumni, guys all over the world in the military. We have 100% high school graduation rate, 96% post-graduation rate. Talking about college graduates, college attendees for at least 2 years, military, enlisted for 2 years, or get a job and gainfully employed for at least 2 years.
And I want to give you another shout out, man. He's consistently showcasing these individuals as adult on social media.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
when they're coming back home, you are consistently. So you guys can go check out Dr. Julius Mullen on Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook. Well, of course,
His
on
website,
LinkedIn.
drjuliusmullen.com.
Thank you.
Phenomenal website. It's a lot of information there where people can really learn about everything you're doing. Also, I want to hear about your three books. Your phenomenal wife and yourself got going on. So talk to me about the books.
Yeah, our 3 books came from a original thought during the beginning of COVID. And we, at that time, like the world, many of us was recognizing so much division and so much pressure to choose left or right, or to choose right and wrong, whatever that is, or to be divided. And it certainly was a phenomenal. It was an issue. Certainly for adults, and adults talked about it a lot on social media and in Walmart or at church or wherever. But I think sometimes the kids aren't focused upon enough because they're hearing all of this. They're hearing all of these conversations around divisiveness and this pressure to choose. So we wanted to speak for the kids. So we started off with our first book, Just Love Me. And with so much energy that day, we were going to the store, going to grocery shopping in the car. We were just talking, and we sat in the parking lot, and I just made notes. And in the phone, we went back and forth, and before you know it, we had a draft over an hour, But Just Love Me. And Just Love Me is really about a message from kids. Whatever demographic label I represent, whatever my affiliation, wherever I live, whatever experiences I have faced, whoever my family is, wherever I worship, what language I speak, whatever, just love me. That's the main point. Yeah. And the other book is I Got a Big Brain. That comes from much of my work tied to Children and Families First, particularly as Chief Clinical Officer. We learned a lot about the impact of trauma, the impact of childhood adversity, the impact of trials and tribulation. That's what we call it on Sunday, the impact of trials and tribulation on the brain.
Man, you just, wait a minute. You just said it. Yeah. Wow, I've never looked at it that way, but it's on Sundays.
Yeah.
That is trauma.
That's right. Wow.
Trials and tribulations, that's right.
That's it.
You heard it, right?
That's right.
Consistently.
That's right.
But now we can identify. No, I really don't say, man,
That's right.
I know you got a lot of trauma.
That's right.
Let's deal with that.
That's right. Absolutely. And in my family, they ain't really trying to hear about trauma and mental health.
Yes.
But you say trials and tribulations. That's what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So again, from a kid elementary age perspective, we want to send another message that there's so many of us, speaking from a kid's perspective, that have dealt with, currently dealing with so many trials and tribulation, childhood adversity, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, a lot of research tied to that work. But the main point is the impact, the detriment on the child's brain architecture or the brain makeup, and the impact of not only the size and the architecture, but the negative impact on the growing brain and how it impacts a child's ability to learn, retain information, make good decisions, manage their anger and frustration and sadness, and that how neuroscience plays a significant part in that. And that can get really high level, so we message it from a kid's perspective. I got a big brain.
That's right. So, and I know we got one more book, but I really want to touch on this, right? Even as I just heard you say, I know this is changing me. Why is it so tough to talk about trauma? But as soon as you said trials and tribulations, I'm like, okay, I'm ready.
Wow.
But then when we say trauma, I'm like, I'll toughen
That's
up.
right.
Like,
That's
man,
right.
hey, not
That's
over
right.
here.
That's right.
From your experience, where does that come from?
I was having this conversation with my CEO the other day, Kirsten Olsen, And because we do a lot of work at Children and Families First, and I like to think we are viewed as part of the expertise in our state, even nationally. But we had this conversation around the importance of language and how language can be used as an engagement. I mean, you just said it, as an engagement tool to talk about some really important stuff. I remember conversations in the barbershop.
That's right.
And, I can't go in there talking about executive functioning and neuroscience. They kick me out of
That's
there, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you will definitely be kicked out.
But when I use the words like stress, man, I got a lot going on. Or she or he, they wildin'. You know what I mean? So language is so important in terms of connection. Then once you get them in the room, the eyes and ears start to open.
Yes.
Now you can take it to a different level. So, but I think the stigma in my family, and not just my family.
My family too.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about mental health, or he'll be all right or she'll be all right. Just need to go in there and lay down a little bit, and they can have full blown psychosis, or clinical depression, or anxiety disorders. They're kind of acting a little different, but they'll be okay. They'll be okay. My own mom, nobody can convince me that. I know she died at what I think a premature age, early 50s. My dad too, but for my mother, nobody can tell me that adverse childhood experiences, trauma, exposure had a direct relationship on her physical,
100%.
physical immune system, which, by the way, that stuff is tied to physical ailments, heart disease, cancer, hypertension, stroke, comes from psychological stress.
I think about this, man, as you talk, and all I think about, right, people always, even with me, people say, nah, he's a late bloomer. I was saying, he's late.
Yeah.
No, man.
Yeah.
It's trauma.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
it took me all of years
that's right.
to deal with that. And now I'm finally getting to where but I wasn't a late bloomer.
That's right.
I was, I was stuck in a box.
That's right. That's right. I like that.
That I was trying to figure out how to open up.
That's right. That's right.
But the word trauma, you're just scared. That's not me.
Nah.
You know why too? Right?
I'm good.
Because there was really, there's not too many too many people around you prepared to help you deal with that.
There you go. That's right.
So it's so easy to push it off.
That's right.
Right? Because I know that once I open this box.
That's right. That's right. I got to deal with it.
And I still got to go back to life.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So how much time do I got?
That's right. That's right.
So I'd rather keep it closed down.
Keep it closed down.
And that's how a lot of us are late bloomers.
And we're taught that.
No, yes.
Whether it's a gender thing or what, but in my family, I keep referencing my family because it's certainly symbolic of many families. Yeah. But my family, we was taught as boys. I mean, even a 2-year-old, you fall on the floor and or in the street, and you scrape your knee. What's the first thing? The message is, get up, man up, you all right? And that's symbolism.
Man.
You can be on the beach, chest hurting. I'm all right, I'm good. And you could be having a heart attack, But we're taught to tough it out. Don't talk about your feelings. You got to make money. You got to provide and deal with that stuff later.
Man, you know what I'm just thinking about, man? I remember when I first came from Puerto Rico, we were living in Brooklyn, and I was playing football in high school, right? And I'm not accustomed to playing football. Till this day, I love it. I don't understand it, but I love it, right? So here's this kid. So I've always been a big guy, so they put me in the nose tackle position. I mean, the nose guard position. And I remember this dude threw the ball, and it slipped by and hit me right in the chest, like point. Man, I fell down and cried like a baby. Right, that point, that pressure. And because I was being taunted, I found myself right there, like it opened up a door that now I spent 2 hours. They had to carry me out the floor because I was crying so deep. That pain and them laughing on me, it opened up so much from the past that even to this day, I think about that. Just by being hit by a ball and people laughing, it opened up something that all that past hurt and issues and stuff, all where I dealt with all that right then and there.
That's right.
And at that moment, I was labeled, he's soft.
Right, that's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Get out. I can't believe you still on the floor crying.
Yeah.
It was just a ball.
That's right. That's right.
No, but that ball initiated,
There you
opened
go.
up that
That's right.
box.
That's right. Open up that box.
So for individuals that are hearing this, right, and are dealing, what kind of help is out there? Where should they start to deal with this?
Yeah.
Or even their own children, or to prevent this from children? I know I just asked you like 4 questions.
No, that's fine. You know, you mentioned my wife, and of course I'm biased, you know, but she has an amazing and thriving private practice in Sussex and Kent. Well, it's virtual now, so in the state of Delaware. And she's so passionate about responding to what you just said. And she has a very diverse team to try to, enhance the cultural representation. But particularly since the pandemic, everything's up, anxiety and depression and trauma and suicide and addiction. So it starts at so many different layers across systems. It starts with conversations like this and how you're going to message this out. It starts with conversations, I'm privileged to be on the BB Healthcare Population Health Advisory Board, and Dr. Tam's work, doing an amazing job, him and his team and the staff and the stakeholders. So that's another system where through our work at Children and Families First, obviously, and being a trailblazer in this particular work. So many other nonprofits and providers in our state that are doing a phenomenal job. And, the governor, obviously, is doing a tremendous amount of work around trauma-informed care. I mentioned to you about Trauma Matters Delaware. His wife is doing some great work. So I'm mentioning these specific examples. Higher education, is much more in tune with this particular area and messaging it out. So I think it takes a diverse approach in terms of from the living rooms, the locker rooms, the classrooms, the board rooms, and all of these rooms to address the stigma, because the stigma is alive and well.
Man, we could talk forever about this. Third book.
Yep. Yeah, that's the one that's hottest off the press. That's tied directly through my Man Up work. And we basically took our impact principles, which the principles spell out the word impact. And through a children's voice, a neat little thing, too, we have some grandchildren. We have them kind of symbolically integrated in the book, kind of messaging this out. But I will man up. And it spells the word impact in terms of our anthem. Be my own individual, model for others, persevere regardless, use your assets, what was given to you, God-given gifts, and communicate effectively. And the T is to give thanks.
I love that.
I could go on, but that's it. That's the recipe, and through a child's perspective, we're just articulating that through a book, and it's called I Will Man Up.
That's what's up, man. And I know that we've talked about yours and your wife's work in the community, the examples, but once again, going back to your grandfather and the fruits are being bared through you, your 4 children.
Yeah.
Julius Jr., right, in Denver.
Yes.
Doing nonprofit work. Jawan, I seen that doctorate, right?
You're right. The other Dr. J.
But
he calls himself Dr. Juan, So.
Jasmine, attorney.
Yep.
And then I got a colleague, Jayla, in real estate.
Absolutely.
In Atlanta.
Absolutely.
Talk to me, like, how does that feel, man?
Yeah.
Your 4 children following in your footsteps in different areas.
I tell you, I mentioned my grandfather and my wife, certainly my heroes, among so many other people. My kids are as well. They have taught us so much about compassion, about being adaptable, about certainly being patient. But even as grown adults, I'm so proud of them because they're paving their way the way they choose to direct their path. And it's different than what we would have prescribed. Each one of them are so different. I was joking with them the other day in terms of they're so different, but they have one common thread. They're all leaders, in one way or another. We're just so proud of them because regardless of whether or not they're in real estate or helping folks through nonprofit work or being a social worker and in prevention science with Jawan or Jasmine being an attorney, they're helping people to be the people they were born to be in so many different ways. So they're using these tools that my wife and I have played a little bit, and imparting some of those values, but they're using their jobs and these titles as tools, but they're really giving back and helping people so they can be who they are supposed to be. So proud of my kids.
That's what's up. You should be, brother.
Yeah.
What's a quote that's resonating with you right now?
Man up.
That's
right. It. Yep. And my definition of man up, though, I like to go expound on that, which I guess I don't need to because I just explain it. Because my definition of man up is not what you would think. You fall on the ground as a 2-year-old, get up. Or your chest is hurting, while you're taking a walk on the beach, you'll be okay. Tough it up. Or you're having some mental health challenges around anxiety and depression, I'll be all right. I just work every day and keep grinding. This too shall pass. My definition of man up is what I spelled out in terms of impact.
Yes.
Yeah, being an individual, modeling for others, persevering regardless, using your assets, communicating effectively, and giving thanks.
Giving thanks.
Yeah.
In everything you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, what is something that you are currently reading?
Yeah, through Children and Families First, through my new role of Chief Inclusion Officer, not only me, but we're reading and I'm really enjoying a book by Jennifer Brown, How to Be an Inclusive Leader. And it's just what you would think in terms of a recipe of how to do that, not only yourself, but how to impact others to be an inclusive leader, how to impact your spaces in terms of being aware of it first, being not only aware, but being curious. You probably figured out by now I love acronyms, so I have a little infographic I created called We All Should Play the Racist Card, not just for any particular one race, but that's a recipe in terms of how to do that, and it ties to what I'm reading in terms of the R is to recognize the long suffering and the events of people who are marginalized and those activities that have happened. We're not short of those events, unfortunately. A is to affirm the long suffering and the pain. C is to communicate with someone who is different from you, even if you're not quite 100% understanding their decisions, what they say, how they feel, who they vote for, who they love, where they worship, and stay at the table. E is what people really like. When you're different from someone, you're probably going to screw up. You're probably going to say something, even offensive, or throw someone off, or a cringe moment. Apologize. Stay at the table. And keep learning from each other. And the S is about support a cause against, supporting anti-racism or anti-this or anti-that in some kind of way. I hear folks tell me moms would share, particularly since the George Floyd murder, folks would say that I changed the books I read to my kids. I changed the conversation at the dinner table. I volunteer on this board or this advocacy group. So support in one way or another in terms of addressing hate and division.
Man, I got lost there, man. Listen. Hey, I have another question for you. If there is a question that you wish I would have asked, what would that question be?
Perhaps, and it goes along with the theme that we've been talking about. What makes the difference? You know, and this thing we call life. How do people get from point A to point B, regardless of whatever? And my simple answer would be, what's worked for me anyway. It's all about people.
Yes.
It's about connection. It's about mentors and compassion. Even if people look different than you or think different than you, it's about helping your fellow human up when they're down.
That's right.
It's about speaking to people in the grocery store or the laundromat or the barbershop or a real estate agency. You know, you just connect with people.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
so that would be.
You know, as I listen to you talk, right, one of the things that has worked for me, especially as I get older, right, because as we get older, I'm consistently fighting the ways that I'm set in, right? There are certain things that we were accustomed to saying they are no longer acceptable. You know, and sometimes, you know, because we tend to judge, right? You run on somebody, you are looking through this lens based on your history.
Right.
And I'm always looking for ways on how to challenge myself, right? To stay open, creative, and loving. So one of the things that has worked for me well is that when you are in front of someone that you might not understand or you will have some preconceived notions, focus on their eyes, Jose. And man, I'm telling you, like, wow. I don't care who you are. When I focus on your eyes, I see you more clearly.
Wow.
Does that make sense? I'm able to see you. I'm able to see myself in you.
Wow. Oh, wow.
But if I'm focusing on everything else, your size, your skin color, your hair, I'm all over the place. And all I got to grab for is my history.
That's right.
But if I'm focusing on your eyes, how? I can compare that to nothing but to see you.
That's powerful.
Does that make sense? I can't.
Absolutely.
I'm just seeing two eyeballs. I'm just now, it's like I'm seeing you and then listening to your words.
That's right.
But when I'm focusing on everything else, man, my past is going to dictate.
Wow.
And then depending on how I'm feeling at the moment, if I'm tired or if I just had an argument or if I just, whatever, that plays into this interaction.
That's right.
So what I'm consistently, focus on the eyes. Focus on the eyes, Jose.
Wow.
And what it has done is
that's
helped.
Powerful.
Does that make sense? It's helped.
Absolutely. That's
me
powerful.
have more compassion.
That's right.
And smile.
That's right. And you made that decision at one point in time, whether it was consciously or subconsciously, you made that decision to look in the eyes and focus on the eye with a level of intention.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
beautiful.
You know?
That's beautiful. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sussex, until next time, and make sure you go check out drjuliusmullen.com, man. There's so much information, man, that we can all grasp from his journey. Thank you. Thanks for watching Your Sweet Sussex. And for more episodes, go to IamSussex.com.